We've made it to mid-July, and for the past several months, we're really starting to see positive data that's showing the Austin market is starting to stabilize. Yet, buyers, sellers, even realtors are getting mixed signals out there. For example, we still have a lot of housing supply in the market, and yet the supply is dropping compared to last year. We're up double digits on pending sales, meaning more buyers are in the market. And yet, the median home value, depending on where you look, is still going up or down depending on these different pockets. So, again, giving mixed signals to buyers and sellers. So, let's take a deeper dive into the data. I'll show you what's happening. Well, I'm actually going to start by talking about rents first, then we'll talk about sales. So, looking at the Austin rent market, one of the biggest things that's happened since COVID is this oversupply of all these brand new apartment complexes that hit the market. And for the very first time in 4 years, rent increases in Austin for the first time. And so you can look at this chart, look on the far left, that was the third quarter of 2022. Rents really spiked up during COVID. And of course, everybody was coming to build new apartments to feed that demand with new supply. They won right when the market slowed down. All this wave of new apartments hit the market. And you can see for the past 4 years, rent declines, some of them up to 4% per quarter. So that means rents were really coming down. Over this span, it says, according to the article, rents have fallen by about $400 off their 2022 peak. So let's say rents were $2,000 at the peak. Now they're $1,600 for the same unit. So really saw a lot of softening in rents, but that supply wave is starting to fill up again. And now we're seeing rent increases finally start to make their way back into the market. We're not done. I still think another maybe half year, a year before you really feel rents fully stabilize and start to improve across the board. But that is a good sign. I'm going to show you this chart here as well. This is rents across the metro. So median rent, again, this includes single family, condo, townhomes, is still a little flat, less than 1% down. But, if you average all the leases out, pretty flat with last year. Some of the leasing activity is down. Months of inventory also down. Pending leases, though, are up. So we're seeing a little more activity. And more importantly, the rent to close price, in other words, not as much discounting, starting to see those rents tighten up. So that is the rental market. Let's go back and talk about the sales market. So if you see this big graphic right here, that's kind of all the data that gets pulled into our MLS system. So this goes all the way out to, the Highland Lakes. This goes down almost to San Antonio. It goes to basically New Braunfels. It goes all the way up to Gerald, north of Georgetown. You got Bastrop, you got Lockhart. So there's a lot of data in here. If you suck all that in, right now, sales are up 6.2% in this area. Average sale is up 4%. Volume is up 10%. Median days on market, pretty equal. And yet median sales price kind of flat, maybe 0.5 down from this time last year. Here's the chart where I think it starts to tell a little more of what's happening this year compared to last year's. So this is the median sales price. If you can see this kind of bell curve here. So this is the last 2.5 years of activity. The dark black line at the bottom is this year. The previous 2 years, the top one, the green one, is 2024, orange is 2025. Well, look at how we started each year. We've clearly had a price drop every year. Market has been decreasing in price, and every year we've started at a lower amount, and every year it goes up in the spring. But the last 2 years, we peaked out in April. And if you look just 2 months ago in April, 471 was the peak price in 2024, median home price. 2025, it had dropped about 16K down to 455. And this year it dropped another 15K down to about 440. But in the past 2 years, that was the peak of the market. And then the rest of the year, as we got into summer, price started to decline. We did have higher interest rates too in some of these springs that went up over 7%. But that's really what started the kind of decline. And of course, we peaked out on supply as well. We had more supply in the past 2 years. And when you have that many sellers and that few buyers, sellers have to start course correcting on that price. So what happened was, you can see that price this year, that black line has continued to climb. Now it's not going to keep climbing. At some point it's going to level off here and start declining. It does every year. But point is, we've continued to have stronger sales this year. We've continued to have upward momentum on the median home values. through June. We'll see what happens in July, but it could go flat. Maybe it doesn't drop. We'll see, but that is a good sign. Now the median home price between this year and last year is within like $700. So I thought that was pretty promising there. We have seen stronger sales activity this year. Let's break it down into some different areas. Again, this is the 5-county area median home price. This strips out some of the far outliers. Median home price up about 1%. Closed sales pretty equal with last year. Months of inventory, though, is down a full month. And so last year we were probably 5.5%, almost 6%. Now we're down at 4.4 months of inventory. Active listings down. So that's sellers. Not as many, 15% lower number of sellers this year than last year at this time. And pending sales are up double digits. And of course, the close to list price is starting to improve as well. So the overall market is starting to see some improvement. This is getting into the city limits. So City of Austin, median sales price is up 3.6%. Closed sales are up. Months of inventory down almost 2 months. So Austin is really tightened up. Pending sales up 16%. Sellers down 22%, meaning active inventory. When you have more sales and not more listings, you're going to have the supply go down. And again, close to list price tightening up. Let's get into Williamson County. So now we're talking Round Rock, Georgetown, Leander, Cedar Park. Median home sales are a little flatter on the sales price. Closed sales are up. Pending sales, though, up double digits. Sellers down 14%. But we're still seeing the price maybe a little softer there, a little more new construction competition. And finally, we're going to look at Hays County. So this is to the south, Buda, Kyle, Dripping Springs. Now, don't be confused by the median sales price. I do think what's happening, if I had to guess, I don't think every house is going up 9%. I think what's happening is the median price has gone up because the stuff that's selling is the higher priced stuff. So you've got nicer homes, potentially your Dripping Spring areas, your West Buda areas, really seeing maybe more of the volume there. And so that is pulling that median sales price up. But that is a good sign. It also might be some of the builders are able to maybe keep their pricing a little stronger than in years past. So median sales price, pretty healthy in Hays County. Closed sales, though, down. They're not having as many sales. Months of inventory still climbing there. Pending sales are pretty equal with last year. So we're not seeing the same story in Hays County as we've seen in Austin and Williamson County. If we look in real time, this is the active versus sold listings right now. So again, July, we'll see if this continues to build. But right now, July is a little lower on single family homes for sale than last month. So maybe we've crested for this year, and we'll start to see that number decline. We'll see. I've had a couple buyers this week comment that they're not seeing a lot of new stuff like come into their searches with new listings. And so that could be a sign there aren't as many sellers bringing homes to market over the next couple months. That's typically when we see it start to decline. Last year in August, we had about 15,300 homes for sale. In June this year, we had 15,300 homes for sale. But if we're already dropping, that means by the time we get to August, we should have less than we had last year. And we were peaking out maybe 3,200 sales a month on sales. So again, what we're seeing is supply is starting to come down. Buyer activity is up double digits. Median home price, depending on where you're hunting, is either kind of hanging in there or it's starting to improve again. And I think that is a positive sign long-term for the market. Here's what really hasn't been as much of a discussion anymore. The last, several years after the rates shot up, that really was the story. Everybody was complaining how high the rates were, but really what they were complaining about is when you use that rate to go buy a more expensive house, the math doesn't work. So what had to change? The rate didn't change. What changed was the price of the house. So the prices of the houses have now come down, and now the rates are starting to work again. So the market has repriced itself to kind of this 6% to 7% range. And if we look at what's happened since March, if we go back into March, that was right before the war. You can see this was the Iran war right there. Rates shot up. But basically this midline that this thing's been bouncing around is 6.5%. Since May, we've been at or above 6.5 to 6.75 and kind of trending in that range. So that's the par rate. We've got buyers getting better credit, good credit score buyers are getting better rates than that. But just know mid sixes is what we have seen for at least 2.5 months so far. So if you are a seller right now, you're not out of the woods yet. Okay. There's a lot of inventory. There's still a lot more of you than there are of buyers. The good news, however, though, is the market as a whole probably has done its damage. I think the market is starting to say, okay, we made it. We made it to the bottom. Let's hang out here for a minute, get everything reset on price. There's more buyers buying stuff. And eventually, as that supply continues to come down, and if demand can stay up a little bit, especially if the rents are filling up, then what's going to happen is you'll see appreciation start to return to the market in coming years. I don't expect it to go gangbusters, but just know that is the path that we are heading. But we're going into the next 6 months where every year, no matter how good the year is, every year prices tend to soften a bit as we get into the fall and winter. The reason is there's not as many buyers. So if you're a seller right now, you just really need to be sensitive on price. If you're a buyer right now, look, the math is here, peak inventory right now. We might even be a little past it. But if you're seeing things on the market that you like, if you're seeing things on the market that, maybe their days on market are climbing, now is the time to talk to these sellers. They want to sell their properties. They are eager to do so. Anyways, hope this information was helpful. We want to bring it to you each and every week. I will be on vacation, so I will not have a video next Monday, but I will bring another one before we get through the end of July. But this data should get you through the next week and a half. Hope it was helpful. And of course, if you want to follow our videos, go to @RyanKellyGroup on YouTube and click that subscribe button. Anyways, guys, we have a nice, soggy, wet day here. Hope you guys are dry, and talk to you soon. Thanks.